Yo, yo, yo. Yeah. ချိတ်ထားတာကာယံကိုနှူးစိတ်ချိတ်ထားတာပလက်လေးလက်မျက်လုံးလေးမိတ်တတ်အိတ်ထားငါကာယံလေးချင်းစိတ်သားပါဟိတ်တာရဲ့စုပြီးကြိတ်သွားမှာလိပ်ပြလုံးရင်နားတော့မလုံးရင်ခုကတဲကပိတ်ထားပါဟာတချင်းနေနားထောင်ပြီး soft phone တွေထူကိုတွေးနေတာလားကဒက်နဲ့ချတဲ့ကလေးတွေကများနားထောင်ကြက်သိမ်း
You're about to listen to a panel discussion that was recorded live on December 14th. It was the first online panel that we've hosted. However, based on the positive feedback we received from the attendees, we hope to host more panels in the future. I do want to express my great appreciation for Zoe Wild and Lily Dolberg of One Light Global, as well as the Unify nonprofit for their tremendous work in supporting this particular panel. I don't think I need to describe the panel's 5 special guests here, as they share about themselves in detail throughout the entirety of the conversation and have also appeared on previous full-length interviews with Insight Myanmar podcast. Our show notes provide links to those episodes. It was really a special opportunity to be able to dialogue with several guests at one time. And as you'll hear, the conversation that developed was lively and dynamic. Do keep in mind that in this conversation, in contrast to our usual podcast interviews, it is entirely unedited. This approach is new for us, so we would be interested in hearing about your feedback about how you think the panel went. And for anyone that would like to see as well as listen to the panel guests as they speak, we invite you to check out the video feed by following the YouTube link in the show description. Finally, please keep in mind that because the 5 panelists were all connecting from different parts of the world and using different technologies, you may notice some difference in sound quality. We thank all of our listeners for their continued interest in the situation in Myanmar. And with that, let's get into the panel.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Zoe Wild, founder and executive director of One Light Global, a humanitarian organization working with refugees and indigenous communities around the world. And I am so honored to be here with you today with Joa from Better Burma to host this live panel, Voices for Freedom, with 5 incredible revolutionaries from Myanmar who are each fighting the Tatmadaw in their own way, fighting for freedom for the people, for human rights, for all of us. So our aim today is to raise awareness about the crisis in Myanmar. It seems to be one that so many people are really just haven't heard about and that the media is not covering. And also to share with you a fundraiser that Better Burma and One Light Global have been raising funds for to build 9 refugee schools for Burmese children and also to provide food, medicine, and water and other direct aid for 2,000 villagers in 2 villages that have been burned down repeatedly by the military. So we have Lily here to cover the technical. So if anyone has any questions or we're hearing some background noises. So if you can mute yourself if you're not talking, you can put any questions in the chat box. And also she will provide the link to the fundraiser if you would like to contribute. Joa, would you like to begin by introducing Ashin Sarana?
Yeah, I thank everyone for being here and joining us.
I run Better Burma and also Inside Myanmar podcast. This is the first panel that we've done. Zoe and the whole group behind her has just been so wonderful in organizing this and this fundraiser for these projects we're doing, as well as to share information about what's going on in Myanmar with this English panel. And so before I'm just checking to see if our next guest is online. I think he is. We would like to begin with Ashin Sarana setting some well wishes and some reminders of mindfulness and good intentions to this panel. And so, Ashin Sarana, if you're on, if you can take 3 to 5 minutes and welcome us.
Ashin's joining now.
Okay, while we're waiting for him, I'll just mention that many years ago, in 2006 to 2008, I lived in Myanmar. And while I was there, witnessed the saffron uprising, saffron revolution. And Joa has lived also in Myanmar for many more years than I did. And so this issue is just so close to our hearts. And we want to thank you so much for taking the time to turn your attention to this crisis. We know that there's so much going on in the world and it can feel really overwhelming. And it takes a lot of courage and compassion to continue turning towards the truth rather than away. So thank you again, everyone, for being here.
And with that, I see that Ashin Sarana is on. Ashin Sarana, you missed my brief introduction. If you can take the next 3 to 5 minutes and lead us in some good wishes and welcome and open the panel. He messaged that it seems like he's not allowed to turn his camera on. If that's the case, he can just speak to us in audio.
I think you can give me the permission to turn on my camera, because it seems that you have prohibited in Zoom.
Oh, go ahead and try now.
Nice. Okay, so it's a pleasure to see you, everybody here. So Joa invited me to share with you some of my encouragement for everyone here and for this meeting. I think it would be great if we consider not just the difficulties that we have in our lives, but also the difficulties of others all around the world, regardless of their race, religion, of their color, or any other differences. All of us deserve to be happy. All of us deserve to be in peace. So I would like to thank and encourage everyone here that you're coming here, that you're joining us in this attempt, in this effort, in this great endeavor and hard work to provide peace for everyone, regardless of their beliefs or of their physical or mental differences. So I would like to invite everyone for 2 minutes silence in which we can wish, in which we can permit. Sometimes it's difficult to allow or permit others to enjoy at least as much peace, at least as much comfort, at least as much health and happiness that we have right now. We have clothes, we have a roof above our head, we get food to eat. We do not have people coming into our houses and threatening us with harm. So those are things that we right now have. We just have to accept that very fact and allow that everyone in this world has it too. Just like we want to have these things, just like we wish that these things are the commonplace, obvious, everyday thing, we need to train ourselves in allowing, permitting, wishing everyone else to also find these things to be their commonplace, to be the obvious thing for them. Unfortunately, many people in this world find these things, that means having clothes on their bodies, having a roof above their head, having food every day, to be a luxury. So let's take 2 minutes to wish to allow all living beings in this world. Maybe search not only those who you find it easy to get these, but also think of those who you find it difficult. Who are those beings who you think do not deserve these? Well, then they may think that you or those who you love do not deserve these, right? So we need to start with ourselves and dedicate ourselves to the universal permission for happiness for everyone. Okay, thank you. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be successful in everything you do.
Thank you very much, Ashin Sarana, for kicking the meeting off. Before we go into questions for our distinguished panelists, we would like to ask each of them to just take a minute. We have a lot of things we want to pack in here. So if you can just take about 60 seconds and to give an introduction of yourself, of your background, and then we'll go into the question part. So let's start with Kulin Thant, if you can give a brief introduction.
Mingalawa, thank you very much for joining this meeting, everybody. So I wish you all to be healthy, happy, peaceful, and successful. I'm Lintan. Right now, I'm the representative of the NUG to the Czech Republic. I'm from a political prisoner. I was in the Burmese prison nearly 20 years. Over 30 years ago, I was sentenced to death, and I was in the death row nearly 8 years. So I didn't see any light because the death row is totally black. So every day I overcame with the meditations to have the peace of mind. And I hoped for the best. One day I must be free. And actually, after the 19 years, I was released from prison. And then I joined the AOD media group as a journalist. And then I became the journalist. During the journalist, my career in Thailand, I met the many people, the leaders, and other stakeholders, ethnic leaders, refugees, and the many people. And finally, I met with Václav Havel, the president of the Czech Republic. So he will have to save my life, and he invited me to be here to grant the asylum here in Czech Republic. Since 2011, before he passed away, I was awarded the asylum here in Czech Republic. Still, I'm stateless in Czech Republic. And I'm right now, 2 years ago, it's happened, the attempted coup in Burma. And I actively involved in the politics again. So finally, I became the representative to the Czech Republic, and I'm working for the NUG, National Unity Government of Myanmar. Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Next, let's go to Theory, if you can introduce yourself.
Um, hello, Mingalaba. So good evening, everyone who are in the western part of the world. So my name is Thierry, and I live in Myanmar after the coup for exactly a year. So I left the country on the February 2nd of 2022. And before that, I've been working as researcher for human rights and mostly documenting human rights abuses in the conflict area since before the coup. I also work with the international media and reporting about the civil and political rights, broader spectrum of rights issue in media in Myanmar. Really nice meeting you all, and thank you for giving your time to listen to our stories and our life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's hear an introduction from Pia Pio Chio.
Hi everyone, good morning, because it's morning here. And I'm Dr. Pia Pio Chio, and from Myanmar, and I'm a gay doctor. And as you know, as a gay man growing in Myanmar, I have a lot to struggle, even before the coup. So after the coup, I went to the Korean IDP camps and worked there for a year, together with the refugees. And then now I'm in a safer place because of my health condition. So I can't continue working in the jungle. So I'm here. And right now I'm still working on, I'm still doing teleconsultations, and I do fundraising for the IDP camps. And I'm still fighting for our LGBT rights. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Let's hear from Matida.
Minglava, thank you so much for joining us. And I was trained as a medical doctor, but at the end of my medical school, there was 1988 protests, and our movement started there. So I took part in the demonstration, and then I joined NLD as a kind of the person for the information section. And then in 1993, we were against the National Convention, which aimed to draw the draft of the current 2008 Constitution. And I was sentenced to 20-year imprisonments, but I spent 5 years, 6 months there. And I did serious vipassana meditation inside the prison that saved my life. So since then, I always looking for chance to practice my meditation practice. And I keep doing both of my career. I have been recognized as a short story writer since I was 19. So both of my career grew together. And then I run so many periodicals, magazines, and journals. And I also work as a practicing surgeon at Muslim-free hospitals for so long. And then to make it short, I now chairing the Writer in Prison Committee of PAN International. I left my country last year, but I keep my status as a Myanmar citizen, and I was joining the Southeast Asia Studies at Yale University, and then I'm currently under the Writer in Residency program in Europe, and I keep doing my work as a writer, journalist, and then the kind of the human rights advocate / activist. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And let's finish with an introduction from the artist Bart Was Not Here.
Am I unmuted? Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Bart Was Not Here. My Burmese name is Jomo Kai. I was born in Burma in 1996. I lived there all my life. I went to college in another country, but I came back to Burma because it was like the it was blooming after 2015. It was gaining momentum, and it was a fun time. So I went back to the country and set up a studio. Started working as an artist. Growing up in Burma, I was born to a Muslim family, so it was like totally, terrible growing up. But I think a lot of I spent a lot of time making, not just drawing. I painted, I drew, I made stuff, and that kind of pretty much saved me. And I stumbled upon art around 8th grade, and I started painting on the streets, and I was like getting into legal troubles all the time. And I got arrested and I got beaten in all the time. But all that aside, Burma is pretty fun. It has its good things, it has its bad things. But when the coup happened in 2021, I joined the protests as an artist, as a citizen. I'm not really keen on politics. Most of my works are satirical. I like making fun of things. So I was never serious about politics, but when the coup happened, I was just joining as a citizen, and I was pretty much scoring the protest and the revolution. I really loved my role in it. So I got involved deeper and deeper and deeper, and I started actually taking on other tasks as well. And then things just started getting out of hand, and it got very dramatic. And then I had to leave the country. So I left the country on 2021 June, and I was an artist in residence in France. And I did that for almost like 8 months, I guess. And then I moved to America, where my family, my extended family is, and I joined them here. That's it.
Thank you so much. Just wow, what a collection of people. I'm just so honored that you all are joining us for this following discussion, and I'm so thankful for everyone who showed up to listen. With that, let's get this started. And Zoe has our first question.
Yeah, it's so incredible what everyone has done and been through, and that you're all here. And I love, Bart, that you were just saying, there's so much that's so beautiful about Myanmar, and so much fun, as well as so much pain and suffering. So for many people in the audience, they really don't know what's happening in Myanmar. It's not in the news here the way that Ukraine or Iran or some other countries are every day in the New York Times and other news outlets. And it's just one of the most striking aspects of this crisis to me, that even the most compassionate and well-informed groups that I know often don't know what's happening, may not even know where Myanmar is, to be honest, and also have trouble in this time knowing what to believe in the media. So I was hoping that perhaps Lynn or whoever feels called could explain what is happening in Myanmar for someone who has no idea.
Yeah, let's take that question to Lynn Thant. Lynn Thant, if you can give a for those tuning in who maybe haven't followed this crisis for the last 2 years, if you can give us a brief overview of what's been happening and what you're striving for.
Thank you very much for your questions. First of all, everybody knows about the attempted coup, but I mentioned that this is not a coup. This is an attempted coup, because all of the populations in Myanmar, they don't accept the military rule and their attempted coup. Still, they cannot rule the country across the country. But the very first day in Myanmar, the people, they feel it, they are willing, their votes were rejected, and they very peacefully protested against the military rule, military attempted coup in Burma, very peacefully. But they got back to, brutally attacked to the peaceful protesters. And then the people, they feel it, they have to protect their lives by themselves. So till now, there are over the 2,500 over being killed. This is just only we have the valid documents and valid informations, but we've got the another informations and reports that over the 6,000 people have been killed in Burma. Because many of the victims, we didn't find out. We cannot find out who are they and who are they, because they secretly killed the people, especially activists, artists, and the leaders, some community leaders, and religious members. Across the country right now, they detain and arrested over the 13,000 people. Most of them as activists and civilians and Generation Zs. We call it Gen Zs. And on the other hand, they brutally, crack down to the peaceful demonstration. But on the other hand, the people still peacefully protesting against the military rule. Some areas in Burma, including, the Zagai and Magway divisions. How Burmese peoples love the peace. Still now, they are still peacefully protesting against the military rule. And they don't accept the military as the military. Our people determined to fight for the freedom as much as they can. The devoted, they have to win, they must win. But finally, there are people, they feel it, the military is a terrorist again. The military, it's lack of their responsibility to protect the citizens of the Myanmar. The military itself, killing, looting, arresting, torturing its own people, its own citizens, its own residents. That's why the people of Myanmar, they feel we don't have the military. The military is just only a terrorist group. There are over 20 townships, over the, thousands of the houses burned. The last year, you remember that Christmas Eve in the Granny State, over the 48 people, including the young children and infants, were being killed, burned to death. Two of the Safe Myanmar children, servants, also being burned to kill. International communities, they just only listen and they just only hear some part of the voices from Myanmar, but they don't hear, they cannot hear every part of the voice of the Myanmar. This floor is a very good opportunity for us. Our people voices can be heard by the international community. So we in Burma, so feeling that, this is the revolution. We, the people of Myanmar, lives matters. We have the right to defend ourselves. We have the right to live our life peacefully and securely. That's why the people, they decided to make it revolutions. We have right now over the 360 battalions. We call it the PDF and other local PDF in Burma. They are fighting against the terrorist military group to have the freedom, to have the peace, to have the sustainable security in Myanmar. Unfortunately, our revolution is running on ourselves, especially fundings It depends on only Burmese people and the diasporas in Burma, across the country, across the globe. We don't have any international physical support yet. We have the political support from international governments. The Burmese people, they feel it, they don't want to get any statements, concerning statements. They just want to have the physical assistance, especially humanitarian crisis, humanitarian assistance. But the Myanmar military, we call it the terrorist military. They misuse the international aids as their weaponizations. So, but the international, they just know that they donated to some organizations to have the humanitarian crisis. But these aids are going to the military funds. Some international investments and also international support to Myanmar is going to the military to do the terrorist task and acts. Very recently, some of my colleagues, 4 political activists, were executed in prison, the very notorious prison in Burma, insane prisons. It was really heartfelt to us. And they were very bravely to fight against democracy and the freedom for many years. Jimmy and Mauncho, so they were very actively involved in democracy and human rights activities in Burma. Puziator, he was the hip-hop artist, singer, and he was the member of the parliament. And Jimmy, he was also former political prisoner. They both are former political prisoners. Very secretly, and they were executed. It was really sad to us. On the other hand, another, the political prisoners and activists who were sentenced to death are very concerning to be executed. A few weeks ago, we've got some very bad news from Burma. The 7 university students, they could be executed. The international community is just saying that they just concerned about their life. It is sure that it is not enough to issue the statements. To end the impunity in Burma, to end the brutality in Burma, international communities, and unitedly supports to our NUG government, and unitedly to support to the NUCC, and unitedly to support to EROs, and unitedly to support to the PDF. We don't want the war. We don't want the battle. Inevitably, we had to choose this way. We didn't want to fight with guns. Formerly, our peoples are very lovely. We love candles light. Every year, every month, Burmese people, they always used to light up the light, candlelight, to have the peace. But right now, the teachers, the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, they became the freedom fighters. It is really sad to our community. They didn't want to be they didn't want to be fighters. They just wanted to be their professionals. But the terrorist groups pushed them to be fighters. especially international community, just mention it. Burma is in the dark age, but they should try to support the people of Myanmar actively, effectively. It will be very useful for the people of Myanmar to end the brutality, to end the military dictator in Burma. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to hear about your colleagues and the many people that have died. And I'm curious, why do you think it is that the international community doesn't respond in the same way they have to other crises around the world?
I think the international communities, they know about these situations in Burma very well, but they didn't want to take the responsible to support the people of Myanmar in need. If they respect the human rights, if they respect the democracy, if they respect the rule of law, they should support the people of Myanmar, because the military junta, they are very close to the Russian terrorist Putin gang right now. So they should know about these situations. They should be aware of it. Why they are sleeping, I don't know why. Thank you very much.
May I interject? I think it's part of the problem, part of the reason could be that our leader defended a genocide on TV. And, things went downhill from there.
When you say your leader, are you referring to Aung San Suu Kyi?
Yep. When things were good, people weren't really compassionate. When during the NLD rule, everybody was carrying on their business, and nobody really cared about other people's well-being.
For those who don't know what the NLD is, can you just
NLD is National League of Democracy. But I think hindsight is always 20/20. I was nowhere near caring myself when I was back in 2019. I was just doing my job as an artist. So it's a lot of moving parts involved. That's just what I think.
Thank you. I see Matida has her hand up, and that was also a perfect segue to Joa's next question. So I'll let Joa take it from here.
Sure. Actually, I have a question for theory, but on this topic. But before we go there, Matida, you have something to say.
Yeah, I just want to mention about, the problem, the challenge is not just for us, but also for the whole world. It's directly related to the right to information. We having gone through 5 decades of the censorship, not just censorship make us intellectually blind. The propaganda, serious propaganda hit us very, very badly. That's why, for example, like in the wording, the term Rohingya has been totally abolished because of the 1962 Printing Act, because of the censorship. So the younger generation and the general public never ever heard of these words. So that's the thing, a lot of people are not very well exposed to some of the bigger picture of the country inside. So that's make us more intellectually blind. But at the same time, since we don't have enough information, and then the whole world, the rest of the world, I think the problem of the international community is they still don't have enough information about us. What's going on? What happened to us? That's also, for me in this era of the information pandemic, the thing is, in terms of right to information, this is not just responsible for the journalists, but also for the active citizens of the globe. We just need to use our rights and our freedom to reach out to every single information we're supposed to know. Otherwise, our activisms will be very much specific and very narrowed down. That's why I encourage, even though your local media cannot talk about Burma, why don't you just actively looking for what's going on in the world? Because every single day after the 1st February last year, 2021, every single day there is a protest or the resistance inside my country. So the resistance is going on. The fighting and the cruelty by the military, it's very, very hard. So I think even for our passion or our kind of the kindness, it should be active too. It cannot be just responsive to the news, what you have been seeing or you have been just informed. We should use our active loving kindness, and we should use our active reaching out to the information. Otherwise, we cannot be the active citizens of the globe. That's I just want to mention.
Thank you for that. I want to go next with a question for Theory, because Theory was uniquely positioned to be reporting on and collecting evidence with the Rohingya crisis in the early stages. And we're now talking about a lack of general international support for Myanmar, which may come from a number of reasons and conditions. One of those that we heard just today, and that we've heard from many in the international community, is that they are confused, to put it mildly, and greatly upset and disturbed by what happened with the Rohingya crisis, and don't understand exactly how that relates to what's going on today. And that has made some paralysis or hesitation in the kind of support that's seen. I want to move the question to Theory and ask what your thoughts are concerning the connection between what's going on today and the Rohingya crisis, and perhaps help to educate some of the audience here that might be hesitating to support the democracy movement because they were uncomfortable with what went down with this crisis before.
Thank you, Joel, for your questions. And also, like my other fellow panelists has addressed, like explaining about the country. So before going to the Rohingyas, genocide against Rohingyas, I would like to just briefly wrap up what's happening in Myanmar and what has been happening in Myanmar. Like, I'm in my 30s, but 30 years before I was born, since then we've been going through the civil war in the country, just like Colombia, and there's an arms conflict happening since after the independence. So we have a conflict, the arms conflict, the civil war has been happening in the country, with the longest, one of the longest civil war. And there is a fighting is against them. We call it. Oh, I don't want to call them Damador. I want to call them Sita deliberately. So with one group which is known as Myanmar military and a bunch of other ethnic minority, and they have been fighting for their self-determination. So this result of this, we have been happening a civil war for a very long time. That's one conflict aspect of it. And then after 2012, it has been there, but like after 2012, more prevalent is a genocidal crime against Rohingyas, minority Muslims in Rakhine State. So that has been regarded as a genocide recently by the U.S. State Department as well. So we have a genocide of the 21st century happening in our country. So there's another aspect of the conflict that we have, and the perpetrator is the same Myanmar military. It's the one perpetrating against the genocidal crime against the minority Rohingyas, Muslims in the country. And then in 2021, in 2020, we voted in the election, but then the same military, the same Sitet were not satisfied with the voting result. And then our vote was stolen and they staged a coup in process. I was like, the ambassador Lyndon said, this is a coup, but it's more like attempted coup because the coup is not finished yet because we are still resisting every day and people are still resisting. So the military is not in control of the country yet. That's why I would name it as a coup in process. It's not finished. That's why we're still fighting. We're talking about this. So all these things are the same. All the crime, different kinds of crime, the international crime, the war crime, the crime, genocidal crime, and also there's like crime against the whole population. The coup is a crime against the whole population. Before they would target the selected groups of people, but now it's a whole population. And then the military is the one perpetrating the crime against us, and then also threatening the life and safety of individual people in the country. So not to be confused with the why we should support Myanmar while you guys publicly deny the suffering of the Rohingya, which is actually it's a very ugly and very sad history that we have to carry on, which I'm not proud of. But in terms of the public, the denial itself there were a lot of layers. I'm not justifying, but the state, committed the crime, and also one part of the state committed the crime. One part of the state defended the crime for whatever reason, and then but the general population, there are a lot of narratives happening around, and then a lot of people like Sema Matira said before, we were cut out of the war, and even the people in the country, they may not be aware of this thing. But so no matter what genocide has happened, that we need to acknowledge it. But the thing is, the same perpetrator happening, and if we keep the perpetrator in that place, the violation will be from one group to another. So they are the one causing all the violence against Rohingyas, and they are the one committed the genocide. So if you don't want to step in with our, if your relatives do, I understand your hesitancy in supporting Myanmar, but this is the same military. If we don't push out, we won't be able to get the justice for Rohingya or justice for anyone else. So not to be confused, this is a chance for all of us to push out of the military, who is the major source of terror, and who is the institution that is enjoining the culture of impunity for many years, even before we were born. So this is a chance for all of us to push the bad guy out of the space. So that's why we should be supported, and we deserve to live. We should be supported not because we are the little people from the conflict setting. No, we deserve to live with dignity, everyone, including Rohingyas. So that's why you should help us you shouldn't save us, but you should help us to push that bad guy out so that we can have our own future with safety and security and with dignity in our daily life. So that's what I want to address.
Bart, did you have something to add?
Yeah, to summarize what Matiri was saying, when the country the first coup happened in the 60s, and from that point on, the military has been in power. So who killed the students in 1988? The same military. Who killed the people in 1996? The military. Who killed the monks in 2007? The military. Who kept us blind, isolated from the world, not even knowing to have the audacity to ask for our basic rights? The military. Who made the people racist? The military, through religious propaganda. Who made Who killed the Rohingya? The military. Who took the country in 2021? The military. So I think with the Rohingya genocide, they just got a scapegoat in the NLD party to, take the blame for everything they did. And that's when things got complicated. And for me, 2015 to 2020 was the medicine. It's a pain med. It's not fighting cancer. So the military is a cancer, and we were not fighting the cancer. We were just using painkiller for 5 years to ease the pain. And the cancer returned in 2021, and now we're actively fighting. All my friends are in jail. Friends are dead. Some people I know gone. Some people I know I don't even have contact anymore. And some people I knew way before the coup who were in the art scene, who were poets, who were becoming curators. They're in jungle with army fatigue on, all camoed out with weapons. They're like 16, 18, 20 fighting the military with fighter jets and, Russian bombs. And it's basically a case of cancer. We inherited it. So the head guy of the military changed, but the cancer never changed. It's the same institution. So much so that I hate the color green at this point. It always triggers them strutting down in their uniform and things like that. So it's a process of curing cancer, what's happening in our country.
Thank you for that. I want to move the next question to Pio Joe. I think you have a very unique perspective as we talk about marginalized people and how the propaganda has made these different peoples more divisive. On one hand, you came out as gay in a community that was homophobic and not accepting, and you struggled with your identity and finding your place. On the other hand, you then went to Karenni State in the middle of the conflict, and you set up a mobile medical tent in the jungles of Karenni State, somewhere you'd never been, something you never did. And through doing this, you saw, as we talked about in our podcast interview together, you realized that as a Bamar, you were privileged in ways that these Karenni were not, and you felt guilty. You expressed guilt and sorrow that you had not used your position as a Bamar in urban society to speak on behalf of the Karenni. So you've been on both sides of this marginalization. So I'm wondering if you can speak to the experience of marginalization in Myanmar, how it came about, your own personal experience, and what you're trying to build now in a future Myanmar.
As you mentioned earlier, Myanmar is kind of like homophobic society. But thanks to the global training of BO series lately, public acceptance and awareness has improved a lot. And I really appreciate it. But Myanmar people still need to properly educate about LGBT issues. Yeah, because before 2015, it's like whenever someone mentions you as a gay, and whenever you say the words gay, the first thing that comes to their mind is transgender people. And they only know of two gender roles, men and women, and they think they are meant to be attracted to the opposite sex. And that's the absolute truth for them. So they think everything except the heterosexual cisgender is against the nature. So the society thinks everyone who wants to go against the nature deserves punishment and discriminations. So it's harsh because just being yourself is an offense to the whole society. So it's really hard. So that's why I decided to come out only after I become a doctor, because I don't have enough power to resist and to fight against all these discriminations. So I have to keep silence And sometimes I even have to act like I'm also homophobic during my university life. It's very painful for me to do so, but sometimes when my friends are like making fun of other gay people, I have to just ignore it. I cannot step in because I'm afraid I might get exposed. So actually, even after the powerful impact of the BL series, Myanmar society in supporting the LGBT communities is not on the right track, because I would call it like a positive stigmatization. Because before the BL series, before the 2015, when we have access to the internet and all these knowledge about the LGBTs, they stigmatize as us like as someone who committed sins in the past life, or someone who's doing someone who's making a sin, or like when we say we're gay, and they thought that we will be automatically infected with HIV. So, and there's even discriminations when it comes to the professions, because the most common professions that they think we should do is like makeup artists or designers or maybe comedians, because they think we shouldn't be allowed to be a doctor or a teacher or a politician, because these professions are, they think, honorable or have a lot of influence on other people. So they think our homosexuality might be infectious to other people. So you can see a lot of discriminations here, discrimination against LGBTQ people, and discrimination against the profession, and discrimination against the HIV, people suffering from HIV. So even right now, some of the population support LGBT, but thanks to the media. But it only covers those good-looking gay people. Everyone else, like transgender or bisexual, everyone else under the spectrum of our rainbow, are still forgotten and still under discriminations. So we need to implement the right concept at this moment, because we have to start from zero. We have to start from absolutely nothing. So we can implement it into the foundation, I think. That's why I decided to join the anti-coup movement, because that's why I decided to resist the military coup, because it's time to show them, it's time to show the people that we are not inferior to anyone else. We can do whatever they can do, and we hate those injustice and discrimination as much as they do, because right now they are under oppressions, their suppression, right? Because right now they are suffering from injustice. So we understand how they feel, because we have been under this for our whole life. So now I think they will learn that what are the human rights, or what are our rights, and everyone has to fight for their rights. Now they understand it, I think. That's why I joined the revolution, because I think people start to change their perception on gay people. Because earlier, like I said, whenever someone mentioned gay, they're like clowns. We should make fun of them because they have committed something bad in the past life, maybe rape or adultery. That's why they are happening like this. They are being gay. That's why they are gay in this life. So actually, they accuse me of us of this crime based on, I'm sorry to say that, based on religion. But they have absolutely no proof or evidence of that we committed such crimes in the past life, because they don't even know if such cases existed or not, right? So now they are seeing the truth. I think because like they are hesitant to use the word gay in front of us, in front of the gay activists who are actively involved in the revolution. No, I think it's a good thing for us. But I'm still hearing some opinions whenever we mention about LGBT issues in this revolution. They say, let's fight the common enemy first. Just forget about anything else. You can do it. You can fight for your right when we get like our freedom back, or when we get democracy, you can fight for your right again. So why should we do that? Because we are now fighting for our rights. Why not fight for our LGBT rights, right? So that's one of the issues that worries me most, because I'm afraid we might get backstabbed when we get the democracy. So it's very important to implement the right concept at this moment. And sometimes it's very important to educate people, because when I was in Karenni State, I noticed that Karenni people have very little knowledge on gays, because they think gay doesn't even exist. Because I met a lot of maybe gay or maybe bi people in Karenni State, and they don't even know what's happening to them. They were just confused, because they think like, I'm not interested in women, I'm not interested in men, and I find somehow attached to the same sex, but I don't know what's happening to me. So they just live their whole life in confusion. So when I talk about LGBT issues in Karenni State, they said, such thing even exists? Are we allowed to love? Can we love someone of our same sex? So sometimes they are not homophobic. They just don't know. They just don't have the right knowledge. So these people are mostly under stress, because they think this is something that they shouldn't be doing, because if they show affections to someone of the same sex, the whole society will abandon them. Everyone will make love of them. So they have to hide and suppress their own emotions. So actually, it's very hard for the people living in the Karenni State, especially because they are in a war, under the heavy strikes of the military, and they are also under the pressure and the stress coming from their sexual orientation. So it's not a good sign. And I'm sorry, what's your question again? I kept lost.
No, I think you answered it. I think the only last part of it was just you referenced coming out as gay in Burmese society, but then on the other hand, in our podcast interview, you talked about identifying your privilege as Lamar in Karenni society. So on the other side of that marginalization and the remorse you felt that you didn't know the conditions they lived under and you didn't do more. So maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, because when I first went to the Karenni State, I was really surprised because some of the Karenni people do not feel like that they are in Myanmar. See, because whenever they mention about us, they say Burma, someone from Myanmar and someone from Karenni, because they do not feel like they are from Myanmar. And they have a lot of reasons to do so, because like there is a hydropower plant called Lopita in Karenni State. And some of the electricity that we're using in the central plain of Myanmar comes from there. But the Karenni people were not allowed to use it. See, because along the way that we carry the electricity from the hydro plant to Rangoon or Mandalay, there's a lot of power line, and the military makes the villagers to guard those towers along the line. Because if something's happened to this power line, it's their fault. they will be fined responsible. But those villages has no electricity. They are not allowed to use it. So, and to prevent it, to prevent the villagers to prevent the power line from villages, they even plant landmines at the base of the towers. See? So the villagers have to guard the tower, and they are not allowed to use it, and they are not allowed to go near it. So they ask the military to like put a fence around the tower so that everyone can know that there are landmines here, so that nobody can get hurt, and the military doesn't allow it. So some of the villagers suffer from the landmines. They lost their lambs, some lost their lives, and it was happening all the time, even between the 2015 and 2020, and we have no knowledge about it, like we did in the Rohingya crisis. See, because that's why I want to ask the whole world to give us support and to fight against the terrorist military, because we committed that mistake in Rohingya crisis. Because after 2021, I talked to the head of a NGO here, and when I asked for help, please help because our people are in danger, because the terrorist military is like looting and burning villages every day. So we need help. And he asked me, what were you doing during the Rohingya crisis? Why are you people silent? So it was such a huge blow to me. So I admit that we are really ignorant, and it's our fault. So we should have spoken up, and we should have raised awareness, and we should have done something for them. But that's a mistake that we committed. So I don't want the world to follow our steps and do the same mistakes again. Because if you keep silence, and if you allow the military to grow and to gain power, you will be doing what we did in the Rohingya crisis, right? So the Karenni people hate Myanmar so much because most of the Myanmar they see are like military soldiers. So they think Myanmar is someone who comes to colonize their land and like use violence to rule them. So they say, when I was in the camp, they somehow didn't notice that I'm half Myanmar. So they say, don't worry, sir. If the Myanmar comes, I will fight them to death. I will keep you safe. So I told them I'm also partly Myanmar. And my boyfriend, who came together into the jungle, is like purely Burmese. So I told them he is also Myanmar. So you have to know that not all Myanmar are bad. See, even Myanmar in the Central Plain, like in big cities, are also under the military rule, and their villages are now being burned, and they're being killed. And also my friends who are medical professionals are also in jail, or some are even shot to death during protests. So you have to know that it's not Myanmar, it's the military. You have to address the right enemy. So like really. So, but later, many Myanmar people joined the EROs and joined the PDF trainings or like something like that, and they came to the Karenni state and worked together. And that's when they began to realize that not all Myanmar are bad. It's just the military. They know that. And there are also some people say that you can find gay or like LGBT people most in the medical profession, and it's probably true in Myanmar. So a lot of the volunteers coming to work in the jungle are like gays or lesbian or bisexual or something. So they begin to realize that, being gay is not that bad. Because we think being gay is like, it's over. When someone's gay, his life is over. He will never get back into the society, or he will never contribute to the society, and he's totally worthless. It's not, right? Because a volunteer from my camp, she is also a Karenni native. And she said, before meeting us or before meeting other people, LGBT people who are involved in the revolution, he used to pray to the God that if I have a child, please make him straight, because I don't want to be the mother of a gay. It's a shame. But she admits that after staying with us for a few months, she realized that being gay is not that bad. It's just a choice. It's just a difference.
Thank you so much, Pepio, for so eloquently speaking to the challenges of so many different minorities and the complexity of the oppression in Myanmar. And I'm curious, Matida, I can't see you, but if you're here, I was hoping that you could actually speak to this, add to this. I think it's becoming easier for people all over the world and even here in America to imagine a reality where our government was taken over by a military, and to begin, and that we're beginning to see so many levels of oppression, even here in our own country, and in so many countries around the world. And so many things you just spoke to, Pepio Joe, resonate. You know, we have indigenous communities here in the US that so much of our energy sources come from them, our water comes from them, and they're not even allowed access to it. And so, Matida, I'm curious if you can speak to the global connection from what's happening in Myanmar and how that relates to the larger movement around the world of people fighting against oppression. How is it all tied together?
Yeah, thank you. I think the for my country, the game changer was the 1962 Printing Act. After the 1962, the military took over the power and then invented the one-party socialist systems. Before that, you know, the game changer was 1962 Printing Act. It's invented the press scrutiny board, the censorship board, and then it's invented the very serious propaganda plus very poor education system, which undermine the role of the literature and arts. And then the linguistic rights. You know, that's the key problems of having all these problems, you know, because of this, you know, a lot of the non-Burma ethnic groups, they lost their chance to voice out. And then after some time, for having no future, if they keep using their own ethnic languages, they started having no proper way to voice out through their own languages. I think this is also very true to the indigenous people in US, indigenous people in Australia. You know, that's why when we talk about democracy, the basic needs for democracy needs the freedom of expression and the linguistic rights. So that's how I became the very active promoter of the linguistic rights. This is very important. And then in this case, we also need to be very careful about the role of the literature and arts, you know. For daily struggle, people just prefer to have a better social life or the economic satisfaction or economic guarantee. So the basic need is not their culture, not their language. You know, in that, it's automatically undermine their existence, their identity, you know. That's also happened not just in Myanmar, but also in US, you know. That's very, very important. That's why the way the other population look at the Thanksgiving dates as a very special day for the indigenous people. It's very painful for them to accept, you know. This gratitude's never to them. They feel they lost something like that, you know. So I think the whole concept of the freedom is directly related to the security, the safety. If as long as we cannot guarantee any safety in terms of physical safety, in terms of the psychological safety, in this case of the LGBT, the real challenge is the psychological security. So if there is no physical nor the psychological security, we cannot say we are safe, we are free. That's the challenge. That's why I think in my country, the poor education systems making us very prefer just to earn degree, not to earn the knowledge nor the wisdom. That's also putting us undermining the role of literature and arts. For that reason, indeed, there are several other literature and the visual arts aiming to have understanding each other beyond the boundaries of the ethnicity, but it's never been pretty well known nor pretty consumed by any parts of the country. For that reason, the people just use their bad memories, and I think this is another very challenging for all of us, not just inside Myanmar, but also in US and the other countries. The bad memories, bad experience always makes someone's pretty much either underprivileged or the very privileged, something like that. And then it can help us to use our emotion, just simple emotion, to judge everything. That's why I really don't agree to pass the bad memories to the younger generation. It's a very, very, the narratives about the bad memories from the elder generation to the younger generation can only build hatred or the bitterness. No peace, nor the loving kindness. This is also very important. In that case, that's why I always say the role of literature and arts is far more important than the press freedom. Press freedom itself cannot guarantee, because we have been very exposed to the information. The whole world is sitting on the pot of the information pandemic. But what we have missed is the proper knowledge and the proper wisdom. We have been very easily tackled and handled by the AI, the artificial intelligence. And then we lost our own intelligence because we need to match with our own experience and the information in order to have a good knowledge and the better wisdom. Otherwise, we can easily be portrayed either by the political or the commercial intention. So I think in that case, we are not the population who exposed to this kind of the terrible mechanisms. But also in US and also other parts of the world, what's happened and the responses towards the Russian-Ukraine crisis, So the people just use their own old memories or the emotion-based judgment to consider everything, So I think that's why I keep saying that we need to change the game changer from the no censorship, no propaganda, proper education, and the right to information is very important. A right to information, I think this is not just from the states as a legislature, but also from our active learning system. What's going on in Belarus in the early days of 2021, I think our issue has been pretty much undermined by the news from the Belarus. But after some time, there is no existing protest in Belarus anymore. But after 2 years, nearly almost 2 years, we still fighting. There is still existing protest in Myanmar. But if we don't pay much attention, if we don't use our efforts to keep connected with what's going on in the world, people turn out to be very ignorant or pretty much naive. So for that reason, for me, it's two sides of the coins. In terms of the right to information, it should be legalized, it should be legitimized, but at the same time, we need to open to the any information, but plus the role of it, literature and arts, it's very important because the information can give us just information and at most is interpretation. But through literature, through arts, we can use our empathy, sympathy to understand and to build this wisdom, the empathy-based wisdom or knowledge-based wisdom. It can only through literature and arts. So I think we truly need to work on the new game changer. It should be the arts and literature. It should be the right to information. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I see, Bart, you have your hand up and the next question was going to you. So that's a perfect segue as our resident artist in the group. That was a perfect transition for checking in with Bart about the role of creativity, the role of art, the role of the artist, the value of freedom of expression and creativity and the power of it that Matira spoke so eloquently to. I would like to turn it over to Bart. I know you have your own thing to share, and along with what you would like to say, I would also like to check in with you as an artist who has lived under successive military regimes and has resisted and fought back through your power of creativity, through your sarcastic wit, through your creativity. Tell us a bit about the power and the role of art and artists at this time in Myanmar, in the resistance and the dangers that so many are under now.
That's a good question. I wanted to build more upon Matira's point about education. I went to public school. It's a pretty well-known public school called Tikondit, where a lot of people went to, and very prominent graduates are. So when I went to the school, I think I started around like 2000, 2001. I don't really remember. The school was super corrupted at that point. So all the teachers and head teachers were almost like 90% of the staff were either wives of military personnel, wives, daughters, mothers, aunts, like all the teachers and staff in the school were somehow tied to the military. So they ran the school like the military. They beat us. They just kept abusing. Like you go to school, like let's say 7 to 12, and that's 5 hours of abuse. Then 12 for the evening classes, it's like 12 to 4. That's 4 hours of abuse. That's every single day. So I wanted to share a personal story. When I was in second grade, the teacher of the class put 3 boys on me. Like she ordered a hit, like a mafia boss. So these 3 guys beat me up after school in the playground. And I didn't know why that was. I just thought that was what school was like. You know, it was you're supposed to function on fear and not the will to learn. Everything I know in life, I didn't learn from school. So I went to school for like 11 years and I didn't learn shit. And that just they just taught me how to fall in line. You either fall in line or you start fighting back. So around 8th or 9th, I think 9th grade, I became like 100% rebellious and I just started fighting back. And it was very unlike me. But I think it was a turning point in life. And that was the same time when I discovered graffiti and art, and this spark of creativity that I found in me, and that really helped me actually gain confidence enough to go against the authorities. The authorities at that time were the teachers. So I have friends who are really into astrophysics, but nobody knows about astrophysics in Burma. Nobody teaches that. So they are working at an ad agency. I have some people who wanted to direct movies. There's a huge censorship law. They couldn't do anything. They just end up working other jobs. So all my life and my immediate surrounding, everybody has that dream that they couldn't pursue because of the circumstances they were in. But they loved it a lot. They had very strong passion for it, but they never got to pursue it because of the country and the system. And when I arrived in America, I have cousins who are still in school, and they have guitar clubs, they have social clubs, they have book clubs and stuff. We didn't have any of it. All we had was like, you study hard, you become a doctor, you become an engineer. If not, you go become a seafarer, go to the sea for 8 months out of a year, come back to the country for 4 months, and then do it all over again. Those were like the career choices if you wanted to make something out of yourself. There was no chance for you to become an artist. When I wanted to become an artist, my parents are so far away from art, they thought I was in a phase, like I was an emo kid or something. And they didn't know what to do with me. They have never interacted with an artist before, so my parents didn't know how to treat me either. It was just a gumbo of mishaps and things going wrong in all positions. And that was one of the reasons I participated in the protest as well. I just wanted the education to be better. I had really strong hope in 2015 when they started changing the curriculums at school. And I remember visiting my school just to go to the cafeteria. Our school cafeteria is good. That's like the only good thing about my high school, the cafeteria. The food is good, but the rest is shit. So I went back to school to visit, and I met this old teacher who used to be my teacher, and she was saying hi to me, and she was complaining like, we cannot hit these kids anymore. Back in your days, we could hit everyone and nobody complained. Now we cannot even touch these kids, and they start crying and they start complaining. I was like, serve you right, bitch. But you know, that's how it is, and people hurt people. So it's a cycle of people hurting people, and in turn these kids hurting other people as well. And I was very fortunate to discover graffiti and pop culture and watch movies and read books and just be surrounded by culture at a very young age, because not a lot of people can even speak English, and that's pretty much a key to the world if you want to use it correctly. And they didn't get a chance because we don't teach good English. We don't teach any other language properly. We don't even teach history right. So if you go to school, the only thing you learn is how to fear your higher up. And that's the story of Burmese education. Like they were conditioning you to fear so that you become a scared little rabbit when you grow up and go serve your military overlord. Yeah, that's the gist of the education system in Burma. And about art, I think art in Burma is very special because most of the artists find loopholes, and we're very good at it. I think Burmese people in general are very good at finding loopholes. So it shows up a lot in Burmese artists. And the Burmese artists have this like very good resilience and this light, I think. Even if their work are dark or, you know, desolate or something like that, they still have this take that's pretty much unique from most of the things that you will come across, and that's what makes Burmese art very unique. I know my description is very broad, but I think you have to see it and experience it yourself to understand it. But one really good thing in the culture that Burmese people or the Burmese citizens in general that have inherited is a sense of humor, and it shows up in literature, it shows up in music, in lyricism, it shows up in poems at times. I certainly work with humor in my art as well, because it's so much messed up things around us, and it's so much darkness and disparity around us. We just can't help but make fun of it and laugh at it in its face, so that it brightens things up a little bit and makes the weight a little bit lighter. And some of the disparities are so ridiculous that you can't just help but laugh at it. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we'd love to see some of your art. If you have a link or a link to other Burmese art that you would be able to share, that would be really meaningful.
You can just find me anywhere. Barbara's Not Here, all socials, all Google.
Maybe Lily can post some of that in the chat.
Sure.
And in addition to art, we're moving along because we're running out of time. But a lot of our listeners are meditators. And that's why I originally came to Myanmar, was to meditate, even though, of course, as we were talking about today, a lot of the country is not, well, is it 80% or 90% of the country is Buddhist? And then there are other religious minorities that aren't treated very well. But for the meditators, I know several people here, Lin Tan and Theory, have used meditation while you were political prisoners. And there are so many thousands of political prisoners around the world today. And we'd just love to hear how meditation has served you and enabled you to continue fighting and to have an inner balance and maintain your heart of compassion, rather than just falling into absolute hatred and despair while spending so many years in prison and under oppression and seeing all the terrible things that you've seen. So Theory or Lin Tan, if you would speak to how meditation helped you through this process and through this crisis and through the things that you've been to, that would be so meaningful for us.
So
Thank you very much.
It's Matida. Yeah, I am not I've never been a political prisoner myself, so it's actually Matida.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I will. Yeah, I did meditation up to 20 hours a day when I was in prison, and that helped me a lot. That's really make me save my life and change my personality. Before I was in prison, I was pretty aggressive person and as I was pretty young, But after spending so much time doing the meditation, and I accept as it was, because in the past I was like a tomboy and I was almost like, pretty much rebellious. But after that, I try to accept whatever it happens to me, but not in the way as a kind of the being forced to accept it, because I try to understand, and after the meditation, both bad and good things making me pretty much indifferent, because it won't permanent. That basic concept after doing so many hours of meditation, the basic concept of the impermanence, sufferings, and the no soul or non-self is very much helpful me to keep going on. You know, I spent 5 years, 6 months in prison, and I have been so much through since the 1988. But without the meditation, without the Vipassana meditation, I don't think I can survive, you know. Until now, I try to keep meditate at least some period of the daytime or the nighttime. So this is my daily practice, and this is my daily survival secrets. You know, without that, I cannot easily be positive and be present. Thank you.
Thank you. And Linton, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, so Matida has already mentioned about the benefits from the meditations. That is the same, you know, the experience like Matida. For me, that, you know, that before I was, you know, the political prisoner in prison, I did our meditations at the Mahasi Vipassana Center and the Dombulu and other, you know, meditation centers. I was in the manhood for several months, and I did the meditations before I was arrested. After I was arrested, and you know, I did meditation. Still now, I'm doing the meditation because the meditation makes me, you know, healthy and happy. And it is like a, you know, to pause all of my activities, thinkings, and that pause make me, you know, relax. Meditation is the best relax, the best medicines for me to have stability, to have the peace of mind. And because right now I'm working as the representative of the National Unity Government, I have a lot of the difficulties, a lot of the challenges, very stressful. But, you know, the meditation make me fresh. Right now, you know, the meeting is, you know, at, you know, the 2 a.m. here in my place. It is really early. But for me, that, you know, this is, you know, I'm used to be, you know, get up early morning every day. And after that, you know, I will do the meditations. And this is really great. So, because many of the people say thinking that, you know, and saying that we love the justice. We hate the injustice. But we ourselves forget to practice injustice. The people saying that, you know, we don't like the bias, but we are very biased. For example, I believe that, you know, I am the devoted Buddhist. We are combining of the mind and matter bodies. Every day we are feeding to our physical bodies food and listening the music and something like that. But we forget to feed to our mental bodies. Meditation is the best food for the mental bodies. The more we have the food for our bodies, the physical bodies, we are stronger and stronger. But we forget to feed our mental bodies. That's why we felt that sometimes, you know, stress and sometimes you're exhausted and a lot of, you know, mental problems. If we feed our, you know, mental bodies, our mental body will be strong and stronger and stronger. That is my experience. I want to share my experience to others. That's why if you love the justice, practice injustice in your bodies. If you love, you know, freedom, you have to make it your bodies to be freedom. Meditation makes you feel free in mentally and bodily. When you meditate, you will get the freedom because you don't think of the past, you don't think of the future. While you meditate, you are at the present. That makes you feel peace. that make you feel fresh, and that make you feel stronger and stronger and healthy. That's all what I want to share about meditations very briefly. But on the other hand, so many of the panelists, they are talking about their rights and the experience. Right now, I want to raise about our concerning about how to end the military rule, because the military itself, the source of the problems, all of the problems. So we have to end up the problems, because right now the people in Burma, they don't have any chance to have the meditations. The people are running away. The people are hiding. The people are fighting. Right now we have a chance to do the meditation, but in Sagaing division and Magui divisions, the villages attacked by the terrorist military, they don't have the chance to meditate. We call in Bali, this is the Kala Vipati. So we cannot do meditations in Burma, the people of Myanmar, I mean. If we want to get the chance to end such kind of bad experience, the actions against the acting, by the military terrorists. To have the meditations time, to have the peace of mind, we need to end up the military rule in Myanmar. Then we will be out of the, Kala Vipati. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We have one final question, and then we will be opening it up to the floor. Just what a wonderful panel of combining art and literature and meditation and democracy and all these marginalized people. So much has come up through here. I would like to ask a question to Theory. It's a two-part question. The first part is with how the Myanmar conflict has been covered in the outside world and media, what people have understood. If you can address what about the experience of being in Myanmar has not really been properly understood. We have a wide berth of listeners that are still on, that have stayed with us, and we're so appreciative. And if you could address what would you like to share about the lived experience of this conflict and the aspirations that people are perhaps not understanding. And then the follow-up question with that, of the two-part question, what of the people that are listening now and maybe being inspired and moved and wanting to help, wanting to support, not necessarily knowing how, can you speak to what kind of support would be appreciated, how the international community and those on this call, what they can do after this session that can be of help to this movement?
Yeah, sure. So the first part of the questions, it's so in the media portray, usually, like when you portray in the media, whatever is a conflict, like they think we are always like crying or like suffering, but that's not what it looks like in the daily life. We situation is really bad, but also like we have life. We are just like you guys. We even in the middle of all the heritage situation, we cry, we laughed, and everything. But so that's like living experience. I'm from Yangon. My town has become the city has become a bunker city. The soldiers are in there. We have bunkers in every other corners of the streets in Yangon, and the guns are pointing towards us because getting ready. I don't know, even though we have no weapons or anything, but the soldier will be pointing guns to us. the soldier truck will be, the green truck will be passing around town, holding, they will be like two people standing up front and two people standing towards the back, and then they will be pointing guns towards you, and then they will drive the other ways. And so like daily life, and they would check your phones and something. So having a mobile phone in Myanmar is a crime. Wearing all black or wearing masks, it's a crime. Or just being young, just because you're young people, you're not safe, because they think that when you're young, you are against the military. So the problem with the military is that they see everyone as the enemy. They see every young people as the enemy. So that's, you don't need to involve in politics to be targeted by the military in Myanmar. It's just, you don't do anything. You just pass by, and then it was complete lawlessness. They would just stop you, and or maybe they don't like how you dress, or maybe they don't, they want to rob money from you, and they would stop and they would just ask question, or they would check your phone. So we have to use different phone. Like every for people who can afford phones, we use different mobile phone, because we don't want our phone to be checked. And then if they see anything we posted on social media, even a comment and something, they can arrest you, they can arrest us, they can torture us and to death, even though you may post something. Or it's not political anything, just something, whatever, daily life, what you are doing, it is considered as crime under the military regime. And also, like for people who don't have phone, multiple phone, we will have to clear out everything just before we go. It's an extra work, and we cannot really sleep. The whole years I was in the country, I couldn't really, I didn't fall asleep until 5 a.m. in the morning, because this is the nighttime knocking the door and the guest registration. They will come to the door and they will knock, and then we never know what will happen when we got arrested. Young people jump off the roof because they were afraid of like being tortured and being killed in the prison, because there are a lot of, I don't even remember a lot of the daily life anymore, because every day is living with fears, and it seems like forever, even though it was 2 years ago. A lot of memories, I don't remember a lot of the things. I only remember a lot, all the feelings and stuff. So that's like for the media. We were on the international news for 2 months straight in the international medias and something. But then the problem with, not only in Myanmar, the problem with the media reporting as well is that only when there's a peak conflict or peak issue, we will get a highlight. And once it is gone, it is shifted. The attention is shifted to another thing. But our life continue. Just because we don't appear in the media doesn't mean that our suffering ends. It's happening. And also you may see sometimes, Burmese people who are either in exile, who are abroad, or who are in anywhere in Myanmar or something. We will be singing, or we will be like going and happy faces or something. And then people may not understand, maybe the conflict is over. They look happy. But just because we're happy, just because we're celebrating certain or living our life, doesn't really discount our suffering. All of us are away from home. So about home is very important for us. Like home is not it's a land. Land is our identity. We are forced out of our home, all of us here. And a lot of my friends have to go to the jungle, and just like it's growing up under the military dictatorship, it's kind of like normal for us. If like also coming from the a lot of my friends are activists. Like whenever I heard they got arrested, it's not even new thing. It's just okay, they got arrested, they're going to be released. That's how our life is. But or to get killed, it's normal for us. But what is normal in this conflict is that it's really heartbreaking to see our friends have to hold up guns and fight in the jungle. They should be partying, they should be reading, they should be writing poems, and they should be doing arts. And instead they have to hold guns in the jungle, because we all want to go home. people in exile, we're fighting. We are leaving not because we don't love our home. We still hold the citizenship because I personally like to go home. I want to go back to my home. I want to go back to sleep in my bed. And you can say, oh, you can go, but it is not safe. It is no certainty, because the military arrest and torture and killing, it's not consistent. They just very random pick. And people in exile wanted to go home, and people in the jungle wanted to go home. Even within the country, we cannot stay at home. We have to relocate, living in different safe houses and all the kind of things. So help us to go home. And just because we don't appear in the media doesn't mean that our suffering ends. And also just because when you see happy face or good face of us doesn't mean our sufferings end. It's the same. The pain may be different for different people, but we are all in pain, but we still continue, even though horrible things happen. I want you to remember at the news, how we want to be seen by the world is to celebrate our living. Yeah, we are still living, we're still surviving. So that's why we are asking they do the support, not because we are pathetic little human, it's because we deserve to live. We are human just like you, so we deserve to live, we deserve to be happy, we deserve to love and all the kind of thing. That's why, and we deserve to go home. So that's why we are asking for the help, and that's the message. That's how I want people to see us as Myanmar people, not like poor people from the conflict. Look at how we live, even in the middle of the crisis. So the world is already suffering a lot and all the negativity. We just like to bring hope and resilience. Look at our resilience, and we are calling for solidarity from the world. Work with us, fight with us, because injustice in Myanmar, it can be in your country as well, in your society as well. So that's what we are calling for. Related to that, your next question, what can you do, individual of us? You can do it. Start from you. You can talk to. Do not think about bigger things. Maybe start talking to your family member, talking to your friends, talking to your neighbors about what's going on in Myanmar. Or if you have any Burmese friends around you, either you support them financially or at least call them, check in with them, see if they're okay. That is important because we don't want to be forgotten. Check in with them. So that's the individual level that you can do. And also, other thing is you can push for your government to have laws and to have accountability mechanisms for Myanmar. At the moment, if you are in the US, push for the Burma Act in the Senate. The bill is stuck because the two senators, Mitch McConnell and also Senator Todd Young, it was really blocking. So push for it, and because it's an accountability act, that's something that you can do if you're in the US, and talk to your representative and talk to your government, push for it. Just talk about Myanmar so that they can pay attention to it. The problem now is the political will. They don't have it. And also engage in our campaign. When we do the campaign, please engage with us in any way you can. And also, if you have internet. A lot of us don't have internet. So you can click, there will some kind of application you can click, and then you'll click for the YouTube application. We can share more information later through this channel. And if you click, then that can automatically generate the money for the fundraising for the revolution. That's something that you can do. And also for the immediate attention, there's a death penalty to the 7 young students. Many of them are under 18 years old, and they may be killed because military is killing them. They will not stop. So voice out for that kind of thing. For the last but not the least is stand up for any injustice around you and love, and just take care of yourself and love and take care of the people around you. Be with us and just check in with your friends around you, any Burmese friends. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Wow, Theory, thank you so much for sharing that. It's incredibly moving. I listened to the podcast for all of the panelists, and anyone who would like to hear more from any of these panelists, there are podcasts with each of them on the insightmyanmar.org page. Joa has done interviews and was just so moved by your heart, Theory, and by all that you have seen. This last question you sort of just answered, but let's start with you. And then I'd like each panelist to spend a couple minutes answering this. Bart, I see your hand up, so we'll get to you as well. We're really wanting to hear, what is the outcome that you dream of? What is the vision that you dream of for Myanmar in 10 years? And so that's part one. What are you fighting for? What is that vision that you're fighting for? And two, what would you like the world to know if you had 2 minutes and a microphone that would go to every street in the world? What would you say? So Theory, let's start with you and then we'll go to each person.
So in terms of the future, there are 3 things, three umbrella that I want to see for Myanmar. Well, definitely we're not going back to the past because it's a lot of marginalized people were left out in the past. So 3 things. One is safety and security in daily life. We don't want to live with fear. That's one thing. And the other one is rights and freedom. Everyone has rights and freedom to have the opportunities. And also third thing is having the opportunities for each and everyone, doesn't matter based on what their identity or where they are and who they are. So that's kind of future that I envision in 10 years. So I don't catch up the second question, but I will just leave it to the other panelists.
I think you answered the second question first before, so thank you. Bart, would you like to speak next? I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, Matiri, that was really profound. Thank you for that. I just wanted to add upon what Matiri said, how you can support Burma in another way is that there's an ongoing armed struggle, both in the cities and in the jungle. In the cities, there's urban guerrilla, and in the jungle, there's People's Defense Force, PDF. And they don't just need guns and bombs and all the hardware stuff, but they can receive help in the way of techniques and software and tactics and training as well. And what the UG has done is they have made their own guns with 3D printers. They're FGC9, and they're really good, and it's efficient. And the guys who are doing it used to be engineers who got involved in protests, and they are supporting the revolution in their own way. And then they just turn out to be these technicians, and they are just learning as they go. So if you know anything about guns, and if you are a gun enthusiast by any chance, or if you know anything about explosives and things like that, reach out to our people through different channels available and just educate them, coach them how to use these materials safely and how to really carry out these missions thoroughly. That's what I wanted to mention, because that's the only way we can win the war, because nobody's coming to fight for us. We have to fight for ourselves, and we need all the help we can get. And that's to me, that's the best help next to funding, So that's what I wanted to mention. And in terms of how I see Burma in the future, I've said it before, and Mati was in the room. How I see Burma's future is a blank canvas. Anyone can be anything, and anyone can do anything they want to do, and they can contribute to the country, and they're gonna see the outcome of it. And we're just gonna start over. We're gonna clean the slate and start over. And I want it to be a blank canvas where everybody can bring something to the table, and we'll all figure out how to fit all of that into the canvas. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize I was muted. Pepio Joe, would you like to go next?
Okay, so what's my vision on the future is like, same as Bart is not here mentioned, we're like reconstructing our home. See, so I believe in our people, so we'll not be staying in this pile of debris forever. So I believe in the next 10 years or in some time period, we'll be able to build a safe place for everyone. That means for us or for any ethnic minority groups, because now we have learned our lessons of letting the evil grow. So I believe that we'll fight to the end, and yeah, somehow we'll win. And to the message to all the people around the world, it's like when it's come to supporting us or donations, people usually hesitate when they hear the word armed revolution, because they don't want to get involved in the armed conflicts, or like they're afraid that they might get associated with terrorism, something like that. But you have to know that the PDF forces were born to protect their home, because when someone knocks your door and rob your things and kill your family member, if you have a chance to fight back, you pull out a gun and fight back. That's how the PDF is born. So that's how the military is trying to like put charges on us, because we have connections with the PDF, because they are our family member. And most of the refugees living in the jungle are like relatives of the PDF forces, because the PDF forces were born to protect them. And like a few months ago, I have a friend, he just turned 18 this year, and he lost his middle finger in a gun accident. And now he's not even alive, because he passed away in a battle protecting his village. So don't see it as a conflict between two armed forces, because one group is like a terrorist trying to enslave everyone else, and the other group is trying to defend their lives and their families. So do not hesitate, and please learn the truth, and please continue supporting us. That's my message. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to hear from Matira next, but also I wanted to mention to those of you in the audience that we will be opening up the floor for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to type those into the chat box, or if you're watching live, you can type them underneath the video on your Facebook page. Thank you.
For the future Myanmar, I really want my country to have full of mutual respect. That is the basic needs. And I want every single person of my country to practice the arts of appreciation to the others, and also having a collective dreams. This is what we truly miss. It's a big collective dreams can change our society for better, peaceful, and promising future. And I think all other panelists has been mentioned about the safety security issue, or all the potentials and the opening up. That's all I agree. And I just want more on the collective dream and the mutual respects for the everyone's. It's for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Lin Tant, I would love to hear from you what your vision is for the country, what you'd love people to know. And I know you also wanted to share about the NUG, the National Unity Government, what some of their principles are on sanctions and some other things. So please add that in as well.
Thank you very much. So Ryan, first of all, I would like to say that, we are building the new state. We don't want to get back the old one. This will be the new state. It will be the new democratic federal state. So we have right now the 12-step, roadmaps to build the federal democracy state, our country. So we have the charters. We have the right now the interim, the Constitution's draft committee. We are drawing the interim constitution, and then we will have the federal democratic country, and we will stay together very peacefully and very securely in the future. To have the brighter future, secure future for our country, right now, our government is very committed to end the military rule. See, our government is just only interim government to lead the revolution. The first, we have there are 6 fronts: political fronts, international fronts, financial and economic fronts, some others. To end up the impunities and the military rule in Burma, we need to have the very strong support from the international communities, especially sanctions. We have to cut it off the military incomes. Our energy calls on the international communities to implement the stronger, tougher, and coordinated measures targeting the military economic interests. We are much encouraged by the sanctions so far imposed on the military-owned companies, individuals, and other military interests by some states. But these measures need to be adopted by a larger number of the nations and strengthened to maximize their impact. Beyond the military-owned conglomerates, for example, the Myanmar Economic Holdings Limited, very recently, our government has announced that the Myanmar Upai is one of the terrorist company, which has been sanctioned by some members of the international committees already done. There is a need to broaden sanctions to wider numbers of enterprises that has been falling under the control of the military junta since the attempted coup. Only broadening sanctions in this way will have a real impact on the military income streams. Sanctions should be imposed on state-owned enterprises that are now under the military control. Myanmar Oil and Gas Enterprise, MOGE, is the military's most important financial lifeline, one of the handful of the stable, predictable sources of the finance used to procedure weapons, surveillance technologies, and jet fuels. The NUT calls for urgent actions to sanction the following, businesses. All state-owned enterprises now under the control of the junta, including MOGE. All business owned or controlled by the associated with the junta, especially Myanmar Upai, MEHL, and the MEC. All private, the business owned by the individual members of the junta or by the senior military officers. All the military business partners and associates assisting the junta, including private sectors firms owned by the individual that are known cronies of the militaries. And all payments, including taxes, dividends, profits, and rents that provide income to the junta should be stopped. In turn, on targeting the military economic interest, the sectors on the, we NUG wants the international community to impose sanctions, especially the first priority, oil and gas, because oil and gas companies provide a large and steady streams of the revenue to the junta. The second priority, mining, because the military has a large share of the mining sectors and profit directly flow to the military and their corrupt associates. Third priority is banking, because the sanctions international banks to the, prevent the transactions involving the Myanmar military will hurt the military stability to buy the weapons and the, to misappropriate, the country's revenue for their personal gain. We want investor we have the something message to the investors. The investors should suspend all the business that are the contributing to the military junta, acts of crimes against humanity, and cut off all the finance in any forms which is helping the military acts of the terrorism. All investors should suspend all business dealing with the all state-owned enterprises, including joint ventures with the state-owned enterprises, and also suspend all business ventures with the military-owned or the control holding companies, including MEHL and the MEC, and suspend all the payments that they provide income to the junta or to the military, and instead place all funds into a third-party account that cannot be accessed by the junta, and suspend all the outstanding loans to Business Holding Limited, and do not cooperate with the business owned by the members of the junta or the senior military leadership or their families members, and they cancel the partnership if they're currently in the business with them. That is, the very effective way to cut off the terrorist junta, their incomes, their money flows. If you cannot sanctions against such kind of these, the military terrorists, they can commit the next genocide, the next crime against humanity, war crimes. According to our research, during the 2 years, the military committed over 2,500 cases of the human rights abuses and the crime against humanity and war crimes. That is, you can help to the people of Myanmar in need. And the very important message to the international communities, that is towards accountability. When it comes to the accountability, we need to go back to the first time of the military coup that took place on 2nd March 1962. Since then, the military enjoyed the immunity and the leaders of the military who have committed different kinds of the crimes on the different people and the ethnic groups have ever been held accountable. Not only the Rohingya, but also Kachins, Shans, Rakhine, Tyranny, Mon. They killed many of our people. They killed many of our ethnic people, our brothers and sisters. But our Spring Revolution gave us very good opportunity to cut the impunity of and hold the military leaders accountable and bring about the justice for the victims. We have approved a federal democratic charter, if I mentioned about in the very beginning of this part of talking, and the People's Assembly held in January 2022 to bring an end to the military conflicts across our union and to ensure all the nationalities and populations can participate and collaborate fully in the union. The NUG is proposing a new federal democratic union where all citizens can live in peace. The NUG has made clear that all the ethnic nationalities born in the union shall have full rights, and that we shall ensure the fundamental rights, gender equality, and the rights of the ethnic minorities. The NUG has issued policy statements on Rohingya that emphasize their belongings and inclusions. It's also recognized the rights of the victims to seek justice against those who have attacked and killed them. Our new Federal Democratic Union will include a special place for Rohingya communities as well. The NUG is committed to bringing the perpetrator to justice, not only for the realizations of justice, but also for the deterrence against the future atrocities. Therefore, we regard this as a priority task. This is our NUG main priority task. As you all know, that in 2019, a case was opened at the International Court of Justice by the Gambia against Myanmar. The case refers to the violence perpetrated by the military against our Rohingya communities in 2017. It is the interest of the justice, for the sake of our Rohingya brothers and sisters, that we have engaged with the International Court over these last months. We have submitted periodic reports as required by the court in its provisional measure of the 23rd January 2020. We have named our ambassador to the United Nations, His Excellency Ujamoton, as agent for the court in place of Aung San Suu Kyi, who she remains unjustly detained by the military. We have withdrawn the preliminary objections that were submitted before the coup. They are no longer relevant. The need for justice requires that we proceed to the merit of the case. We have sought to work with this court and with the Gambia to secure justice. The military regimes rules by the gun, even that is failing them. They do not have the effective control over the country. They have no popular consent for their violence. They have consistently betrayed the Myanmar's international obligations. They stand condemned by what they do each day in our country and by the voices of their victims, living and dead. However, the same military has engaged with the International Court of the Justice, although they have not received the credential for the United Nations, and they have been barred from ASEAN and from many other international forums. As the only legitimate government of the Myanmar and the true voice of the people, NUG proposed that it must represent Myanmar before ICJ. Unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to represent the Myanmar in the previous sections of the ICJ. The previous National League for Democracy government emphasized the importance of the domestic accountability for any crimes committed by the military and by others. However, now, since the unlawful failed coup on the February 1, we've seen these codes being used by the military to perpetrate their goals, irrespective of the justice. Therefore, NUG recognized the urgent needs for international accountability for crimes, those against the Rohingya, and those against so many of our brothers and sisters since the unlawful attempt coup.
Linton, this is all such important information, and we've had a lot of requests for lists of the businesses and other ways that people can support. We are pretty far over time, so if we could wrap this up in perhaps a minute, or I can say some things and then we can come back to this after.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to everyone, panelists and participants and listeners that have been with us today. It's been so powerful to hear from each of you, so moving and educational. I'd like to remind you that if you would like to help, if this touched you today, if you've learned something, please spread the word to your community. You can share this recording. And you can also, if you'd like to help, donate to our fundraiser for 9 refugee schools in Mizoram refugee camp that will support 937 Burmese children, students, and 70 teachers. It funds the schools for supplies. And also, 2,000 villagers in 2 villages whose villages and homes have been continually burned and destroyed by the military forces. So if you would like to contribute, you can do that at www.onelightglobal.org/Myanmar. And that link is in the chat now. That's onelightglobal.org/Myanmar. And 100% of donations go directly to the causes, and they are tax deductible in the US. So thank you so much for your contribution. And please share this absolutely powerful conversation with your community. It's so important that we raise awareness, contact your politicians, and we will send all of these links in a follow-up email. So for everyone who has to go, we wish you a good night. And for those who would like to stay, we will be answering some of the questions that were in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so I just appreciate so much our panelists and our listeners for staying on. The archive of this will live. It will be published on our podcast stream and other places. So even though we may be over time now, and there are still some questions and some things that panelists would like to discuss, as well as the listeners would like to ask, and so we can keep going as long as there's an intent for that, and this content will live on for those that are still listening now, and for those that will access it later. We can keep going with it. For those that have to leave, as I see in the chat, that's perfectly fine. This has gone longer than expected, and we just appreciate how much everyone has given. There was a question in the chat and from Elliot, and he will ask it in voice just so we have a voice record of that question. And then it's a question about Burmanization, and then anyone who would like to answer it from the panelists may do so. So Elliot, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So I'll just read the question and add a little bit at the end. So one of the key calls on Burmese social media during this Ayeda Bone kit has been to uproot Burmanization. You guys have already talked about this a little bit, but I was wondering if you could talk about the backlash to Burma privilege discourse. So from Anyata, for instance, who insists that they don't really benefit from this. How do you understand Burmanization? Is it as Burma Mupyu or Burma Lumyoji Wada, or just Burmanization as something totally different? And how should it be addressed? And I wouldn't ask if you could maybe go beyond rights discourse, because as we know, Akwiye in Myanmar sometimes doesn't really mean very much. Right? So rights can be written on paper, but in reality is another way. Most daily life in Myanmar, most daily people will probably tell you that. And so trying to solve things by giving everyone rights won't really address these deeper structural issues like Burmanization. So I'll leave it at that.
If nobody is jumping, I'm going to jump in. So my understanding, I don't represent any Burma, though, even though I regard myself as Burma and I grew up as Burma. So also you were saying like Anyata, saying the discourse that Anyata is saying like, oh, we're not benefiting from the Burmanizations and this is militarization. That's usually what, but I don't think it was actually Anyata who were sharing this kind of discourse. It's more like Burma like us, like privileged Burma, who are we may not be ethnically pure Burmese. I am not ethnically pure Burmese, but I grew up as Burma Buddha in the Mapothe national ID card. So for me, like Burmanization, my understanding is more about the structural privilege that is granted upon us just because we claim ourselves to be Burma, and it doesn't necessarily mean our bloodline. We may not even be pure Burmese because Myanmar is not a race society. It's very difficult to differentiate with the race and everything. So I think my understanding of Burmanization is more about the structural privilege granted upon us just because we claim ourselves to be Burma. So in terms of the Burmanization, it's a lot of it's not like right or wrong or anything. That one is the state imposed, what state means the military like impose this kind of, only Burma Buddha have a more privilege. That's the state level militarization. That's one thing, and that resulted with the systemic the things that people in the different layer of the society, we whether knowingly or unknowingly imposing, like we make jokes about ethnic people name, or like Muslims or Chinese, like we exclude people, and we may not even know because there was nobody told us to discriminate or like feminize other people. But in a way, our system, the way it is set up, is like nobody really intervene us when we are doing the act of feminization. So my understanding of feminization is more about the structural rather than the actual being Burma. But in terms of the discourse, yes, we have a lot of backlash, but I would say there are a lot of openness and people started talking about this. And because it's more like lived experience. Sometimes people may not use the academic words like feminization or something, but in their daily life, they may be practicing, their behavior may be changing, but they may not necessarily know what it is called in the technical term. So that's how I would describe it briefly, because this is not, we can talk more, Elliot, you can reach out to me and we can talk more, but this is briefly explaining about what my understanding of the Burmanization and the backlash, but things are getting better now.
I think I'm going to jump in and share my experience a little bit. I myself is not a pure Burmese because my mom is 100% Korean. So I'm half Korean, but I've lost my identity as a Korean because I cannot speak Korean language at all. And I don't know any custom of the Korean people because it's pointless for me to learn about it because I can't use it in my daily life. And I don't have any opportunities, or I can work, I can find any job with it. So my mom chose not to teach me the Korean language. And when I went to the Korean state, I learned that most of the Korean kids are forced to choose a Burmese name when they go to school, because it's hard for the teachers to pronounce a name. And one of the most words that our patients say to us is like, "I'm sorry that I cannot speak Burmese. I feel really ashamed." So I was like, no, it's totally okay because I'm an outsider. This is your land, this is your place, and you can speak your language very well, and it's fine. So it's not a shame that you cannot speak Burmese, but somehow they feel suppressed or like kind of have some discrimination when it goes to the office or when it goes to the school or when it comes to finding jobs. Being able to speak Burmese is like a big privilege. And so they have to like let go of some of their identities or their customs or their traditions. So they have to follow these rules because when they are going to go to the school, they are forced to wear like longji. See, they cannot wear their traditional costumes or like that. So this is what I experienced from going to the Korean state.
May I jump in? I don't know anything about Burmese privilege because I grew up Kala, and everybody made sure that they reminded me that I'm a Kala, which is a racial slur for Indian and Muslim descent. And so the majority of my life, I grew up as a Kala in their eyes, even though I don't practice Islam, but still Kala. I think what I see is a Buddhist privilege, which a Buddhist country, and there's a twisted Theravada, which is not pure. It's been touted and made impure by the military through religious propaganda, and this very toxic Buddhist sometimes extremism, sometimes privilege gets into the system, and it somehow rigs the system and it makes other people very hard to even acquire a passport if you are an ethnic minority or a Muslim. In your ID card, you get your passport slower than a Burmese Buddhist, things like that. So that I've experienced. And then there's also Yangon privilege, which is if you grew up in Yangon, you are so privileged. You got to use that slow internet before the other people who didn't even have electricity in the countryside. So there's Yangon privilege and Buddhist privilege, and I benefited from Yangon privilege because I was born in Yangon, the commercial capital of the country. So I think I can speak to those two. Yeah.
May I share about my experience? So I'm not the Burmese pure. I'm the Anglo-Indian Burmese. On my ID card, it shows that, the Anglo-Indian Burmese, because my grandpa is the British and my grandma is the Indian, and that's why I'm very mixed. So when I was young, I was called my friends some of their parents call me the Kalapu because my grandpa is the British. So they discriminated me a lot. Sometimes they call me the rat. It's a mouse. But it is really, said to me, sometimes I'm sharing about my young, experience. As even some of my teachers, they call me the Kalapu. But I have the brown, skin because this is very Burmese. My features are very Burmese. My grandpa is okay, right? He died at the age of the 100s in Burma. He became the Burmese citizens after the Burma got the independence. He was the economics an officer of the British Oil Corporations. But when I was young, all the time the Burmese people they're saying that to me, how the Kalapu, because the British ruled the Burma over the 124 years. They hate the Kalapu and they hate the colonizations. But, Burmanizations, but this is not the Burmanization practice in Burma. I believe that, this is just only misused by the military. The military itself, they are using such kind of the words. And some ethnic leaders in there, are history, some leaders and community leaders, they think is, just explaining about the Burmanization. But this is not Burmanization. This is the militarization. This is simple. So since they 1962, the military make it itself, making how can I say that new class. So always they have to save the country. They have the responsible, to save the country, to save the religions. They misuse the religions, Buddhism. The Buddha taught us very simple, taught us very clear. We don't have even, men and women, even the animal, only beings. We all are beings. It is the process of the mind and matter process. That is in the Buddha taught, us. Very clear, no discrimination at all. But the Buddhism was misused. Buddhism misused by the military right now, especially some prominent Buddhist monk. They misused the Buddhism. They are destroying the Buddhism, so-called the Theravada. But this is a very sad to say about this one. Some very famous Buddhist monks, they always using something misuse words. That is why, you're asking such kind of questions. That's all what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Hey, Pyojo, we see your hand is raised. And I think this will have to be the last question just because of timing. But we can always open another panel.
I have one more thing to say about the Burmanization that I experienced in the Karenni state. Because I heard that I met a person from Karenni ethnic group, and he's a kind of a leader in his community, and he's now like fighting in the armed force, and he's quite a leader. And he got arrested during the end of the time of power because he protests against the General Aung San statue, putting General Aung San statue in Loikaw. So some Karenni ethnic groups did not agree on that because instead they think this is their land. So instead of the General Aung San statue, they want to put their own leader statue. But because General Aung San is our hero, but not theirs. So he protests against this and he was put into jail for 6 months. And after that, he got released. But now he's letting go of all the past grudge and he's working together with the NUG government to fight against the military. But we have to learn from our mistakes. So that's another thing. I think it's related to the Burmanization or something like that. And I just wanted to share it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, all of the panelists, all the listeners, everyone who came. This was planned to be 90 minutes. We've gone over 2.5 hours, and I think that just speaks to the level of enthusiasm and sharing and interest in this. So this is the first panel that Better Burma has hosted with the support of Unify and One Light Global. And we hope it's not the last. We hope that this experience can lead us to a way to having more of these voices, more of this sharing, and to have it reach beyond the Burmese in country, the diaspora, the allies that are already here and engaged in the issue. We hope that this can reach to the wider international community who may be learning about this for the first time, or learning in depth for the first time, or taking the time to educate themselves on what's really happening and how they can support and why it's important to be engaged. We hope that this could be the first of many going forward. And we just really appreciate everyone for being involved with this, that made it happen, that showed up to speak, showed up to listen, that donated money, that is to the fundraisers that are going to these humanitarian missions, and who are involved in any number of ways. And this has just been, I just really thank our panelists for their courage and their honesty, their vulnerability, and their insights in sharing. So thank you everyone so much for coming. And this recording will live on the Inside Myanmar podcast feed, as well as other places on Facebook. And so for those that missed part of this or want to share it with others or want to go back and listen to something, we will have a copy of this. So thank you everyone for your involvement and for showing up and caring. It's meant a lot, and it's been just a very powerful, informative talk.